Anamosa Council, Monday, September 9th, 2019, 6 p.m. at City Hall Council Chambers. 1.0 roll call.
Rod Smith,
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
Weimer, Crump,
Here.
K. Smith,
Here.
Lockhart,
Here.
2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
3.0 motion to approve the minutes from the following meeting, August 26, 2019, regular council meeting.
So moved.
First by Cody,
Second. We're good
second by
together.
John.
Beth, will you make that correction?
yes. So on the, section with the mayor and council, Kay had actually presented the Monarch City information, and I put R. Smith instead of K. Smith, so we're correcting that to K. Smith.
Okay. Alright, so one correction that's being taken care of. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4.0 public hearings. 4.1 public hearing on proposed amendment to the Anamosa Corridor Urban Renewal Area, and I'll open the public hearing. Have you heard anything from anybody on that, or?
Nope. Move to close public hearing.
First by Cody to close the public hearing, and that was second by Betty. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 5.0 proclamations, none. 6.0 old business. 6.1 first reading of ordinance vacating and conveying north 100 feet of 24-foot wide alley adjoining to the east 1005 East First Street in Anamosa, Iowa.
Move to approve. Second.
First by Rich, second by Cody. Any discussion?
And this is the third reading.
Yeah. Alright, and it's a roll vote.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Lockhart,
Yes.
Rod Smith,
Yes.
6.2, review and approval of bill from Houseky Heavy Equipment for Volvo MCT 85C skid steer.
Move to approve.
First by Betty.
Second.
Second by Rod. Any discussion?
I just wondered, Jacob, on here, when this was done. I mean, there's no date. It says signed and sealed on and has no dates there. I just want,
The purchase agreement?
yeah, I just wondered.
I have that. It was ordered on March 13th, 2019, and it was delivered to the shop on July 10th, 2019.
Any further council discussion?
Well, I just wanna say one thing, that, in my opinion, this whole mess could have been avoided. If, after we first discussed this, an email had been sent out to all the department heads to notify them. Would have taken 1 minute. So I'm greatly disappointed in that.
Seems like we spent more time justifying this than we did knowing about how things were even purchased or why and when. There's been more correspondence to try to sell us on this being a good purchase than anything.
Any public
Well,
comment?
I'd have to disagree with that because we had plenty of opportunity to further discuss this at the time. Greg stood before us in January with the proposal to place this money into the budget. It was as detailed then as it was at our last council meeting. We had an opportunity to further discuss the same line item that we allowed to be put in the budget in January, in March, before we had final approval. So anything subsequent from that, we should have expected the equipment to be ordered because we already approved it. And I will agree that we should be informed of large purchases. What I don't also agree with is Greg did not say budget $40,000-$50,000 for a skid loader and leave it at that. He gave us details to that certain piece of equipment at that time that he wanted as for the reason he wanted the money in the budget.
See, and I have to disagree with you, Rod, because we did state no purchases of equipment for the next fiscal year, expecting to have that discussion at a later date, regardless of what he did at that point in time. There was an expectation there of having that discussion at a later date. That never happened.
And I think that whatever the action was of whoever, and I don't really care if it was City Hall or whether it was the department head or whatever, I think our decisions at this table need to not be reacting to their actions, but we need to further think through. And at the last meeting when I asked, is there a purchase agreement? What's in the contract? And like, nobody seemed to know, but we were willing to make a decision anyway. And I think that with the whole emails and everything, exactly what you were saying, Cody, the time spent, had we done our preliminary work before the last meeting, because we knew, you, Rich, I believe it was you, if I remember right, that wanted it to be tabled until the next meeting. So in them 2 weeks' time, we had time to gather all that information. And that could have been discussed before making such a harsh decision that we're just not paying for it. And I feel that's on us. That's on this table. So no matter what the actions are of any city employees anywhere, when we become reactionary, I don't think it best serves the community.
Well,
So that brings me to my next question. Department heads can just pull the trigger on something
No,
like this?
that's not what I said.
No, I know that's not what you're saying.
That's not, no.
But I wanna know why that's acceptable.
And nobody said it was acceptable. I'm saying that in the event that these things happen, how we handle it at this table, what we become reactionary instead of, we knew for 2 weeks that you were wanting more information and that you probably weren't gonna approve it. Therefore, we could have been gathering information. I gathered information in them 2 weeks' time.
But I would like to go back to January, because in January, yes, we approved a budget. Does that mean absolutely every penny in the budget is going to be spent? Or is that guidelines that we need further discussion as we move through the year about? I guess, well, in my personal budget, I have a budget, but that doesn't necessarily mean I spend every penny without thinking through what I'm spending it for and how I'm spending it and how it's going to affect other purchases.
I
And-
totally agree. I 110% agree with that. I think when I budget for something, if I'm gonna say, we're gonna buy a car next year and I wanna spend, I don't know, 30 to 40,000 maybe on one, is a little bit different than if I find a make and a model in a year and how much down payment I'm gonna need and what I'm getting trade-in on my car and what my payments are gonna be, if I even want payments. Like, I think that kind of thing in a budget is a little bit different than I'm just gonna spend 30, 40,000 on a car. So I agree, Kay, with what you're saying. This happened to me, happened to be such a gray area that, yes, we want everybody to come to us with further approval on major purchases, but I can also see in retrospect where when all the information was given in January, that somebody felt they had already done that. I agree, we should say, even though it was part of your budget and you feel you have done that, that's not what we're saying. We're saying before the purchase, you still come and do it. I have no problem with that. I'm just saying that to be reactionary and say, forget it, we're sending it back, we're not paying for it. I felt that that's probably where we as a council maybe could have done things a little differently, and I was part of the table and I'm gonna own my share of it.
Well, and Betty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall when we talked about having this discussion about purchasing of equipment and so forth, and having a plan, you agreed with it at that time in March and February and whenever we did it. So you agreed that there shouldn't be any purchases until we had that discussion.
I still agree with that, and I'm not saying that it should, I'm saying that, yes, could have happened. And I'm saying, yes, that could have been done again. But I can also see both sides of it, where if he's brought all that information, he's felt he already did that. I'm saying that we become reactionary, where our harsh decision of we're just gonna send it back maybe is not a best decision for the city as a whole. But should I say it shouldn't be addressed? I never said that, and I'm still not saying that now. I'm just saying we did become reactionary,
With, I think, good reason.
and I respect that.
It wasn't because we didn't pass the information along. It didn't get passed along past us. Some department heads understand that they needed to come talk to us about big purchases, and other department heads just don't.
Well, and I have a feeling that point has been driven home. And I have a feeling that probably we'll not have to address this issue again. Which is the ultimate goal, is
Well-
to move past and go on and never have to address it like
Right.
this again.
But until we have that discussion of how to do this purchasing, we have that issue hanging out there. When we talked about it in February, it was supposed to be done by the end of June. We talked about it again in March, and we talked about it again in April. I don't know where we stand with having anything in place. We haven't heard anything, we haven't had that discussion. Nothing's been done, as far as I know. I mean, we're a good 6 months past when we had that initial discussion. So, where are we going?
No, I agree, major purchases need to be run by us, that's never been the dispute.
But we
Well-
haven't determined an amount for a major purchase.
And I'm not even saying that everything's gotta be run by us, but we've gotta have a plan in place of how this is going to occur. It just can't be, somebody says, okay, I put $40,000 for equipment in my budget, and they go out and buy a new pickup or whatever, because, oh, it was in my budget.
We need to make it a written policy. That
Exactly.
the city of Anamosa employees,
And I don't
budget
want,
or no budget, city, like, we need to And I mean, it needs to be a policy, and it needs to be a policy followed by everybody in
And
the.
that's what we're trying to accomplish, but nothing's been done.
So I don't want department heads to come to the next budget meeting, put together a fancy slideshow, and then that justifies it
No.
because they did their homework then. It doesn't justify spending money.
No, and I agree with that.
And from the time that they put it in their budget until the first fiscal year, things can change. So we have to go and do what's right at that point in time, not just because it was in the budget.
And I agree, we need to make a policy, we need to enforce, we need to follow through, and we need to make sure that we're relying on the actions of the council, not the reaction, was all I was saying.
But I go back to the fact that all it would have taken was a 1-minute email to everybody at that point in time, which I'm guessing was not done. So it appears like somebody ignored the direction of the council.
Well, department heads propose a budget to the council. We still approve it. So
And
whether you wanna say it, they submit it, we still review and have some time after their proposed submittal that we approve the budget. Once again, I have less heartburn over this because it was such a detailed presentation. We knew exactly what we were getting. We permitted it to be in the budget and then approved the budget thereafter. This was not a just put $40,000 in so that if I choose to get one, the money's there. This is not as much of a issue with the streets superintendent as I think this is made out to be. We knew just what we were getting.
So the model number on the budget is the same as the
Oh
one
my,
we
we're
purchased?
gonna, your
Just
your
asking.
defense is gonna be a type error.
Just asking.
Okay, that you can
I'm
die on
gonna
that
say
mountaintop,
yes.
okay?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
well, on behalf of the taxpayers, I really don't have a problem questioning these purchases this
No.
way every time.
And I agree, I have no problem with questioning, I have no problem with bringing them in here, and I have no problem with asking for justification. All I'm saying is we did become reactionary. And I get where you're coming from. You felt it was necessary, Rich, to be reactionary. I respect your stance on that, and I'm okay with it. But,
Well, it's only reactionary because the reaction is due to somebody not performing their duties on the front end. So that's when you become reactionary. If it had been done on the front end, who knows, it might have still been the same result, but we got here because somebody did not do their job.
and I have a feeling the point's been driven home. Jacob, I don't know what it's gonna take, but do we need a policy, and is that something that needs to be in writing, and we need to have it approved as part of something?
We've asked for policy. We gotta talk about this in April during some goal setting meetings. I guess it's something we'll just have to be a little more direct with and take control of it.
We'll have to discuss it further later.
I agree, there should be a policy in place. I apologize that it hasn't been brought to you yet. I think, again, I'm required to every day prioritize my responsibilities, and that's what I've done, so.
So, any public comment on this little jewel 6.2?
Sue Crump, 420 Holt Street. All due respect, Betty, you're one of the most reactionary people I've seen on this council, so I kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Okay,
Also, the first time I saw our streets department in months, maybe even years, was when he came up here to present 2 weeks ago. I don't see him here on a regular basis, yet his department is brought up a lot. And I want to know, Jacob, the way he addressed certain council members that night, he stormed out of here. Is he going to be held accountable for that? Because that was about as unprofessional as you can get up here representing your department. That was disrespectful. He was falsely accusing people, and then he left in a huff when things didn't go his way. You can think about that, do what you want with it, but it was embarrassing.
Thank you. Any further? We'll go for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
6.3.
Could you, I guess I didn't hear what the final tally on the vote was,
I have 2 nays, Crump and Schaefer.
and 4 yeas.
Correct.
Thank you.
6.3, proposal for special auditing services.
Okay, I had a few different things that was requested to be provided. One was the list of things that are reviewed in the annual audit by Clifton Larson Allen. This is a list of things were provided to us for this fiscal year. It's not everything, there's some other items they review as well. This is above and beyond the balance sheet and the revenue detail and the expenditure detail and the general ledger, but just for your information. It also has to provide the cost, what we pay for the annual audit each year. This is the actual printout from the accounting software with the total fiscal year totals added up. Aside from that, I tried to get in touch with the other 3 firms that submitted proposals. Just kind of, I know we had discussed trying to get a price on 3 years worth of review. The only one that provided any sort of clarity on that was Bergen KDV, and they already had a 2 and 4 year proposal. They said it'd be roughly around the $10,000 mark for 3 years worth of transactions, according to their scope, which isn't necessarily everything. In talking with RSM, it became a little bit more clear on what their proposal was, and really their initial proposal wasn't to review any documentation, but to first do a risk assessment and determine which documents should be looked at, because they didn't feel it was worth the city's money to just dive into everything. They thought it would be better to review where the high-risk areas were and then drill down to specifics. So that's where their proposal was focused, was first to try to determine the scope rather than to do document review. I wasn't able to get a hold of Heidi Bailey today. That's not to say that wasn't their fault by any means. So I guess I don't have further insight, but I think their proposal is more similar to that of Bergen KDV, in that they're planning to use some forensic software to review a certain, again, still limited number of documents, but probably more documents than they could do with a manual review.
And again, I'm gonna recuse myself from both discussion and voting.
Well, I know from some discussions I've had with some people in the community, they really think we ought to do 4 years, and they would really like to see even further back, but they're okay with starting at 4 years. So the 3-year, 2-year, to me, I'm good taking that off the table and going to the 4 year.
And again, I'm just throwing this out there for your information. RSM, and talking with them, they said if they did a full document 4-year review, we'd be looking at $60,000 to $80,000.
Well, but if they do the risk analysis, which, since nobody's really here to say this is how we did things, or this is who had control, I'm not real sure how their risk analysis will work unless you have a good knowledge of how things were going 2 years ago. I mean, that's gonna be kind of a question area of where they're gonna gather their information on how things were working without having somebody here who partook. I mean, they may be out of the whole thing because of their price tag. You know, using the kind of the forensic approach, that might be the best and simplest approach. Plus the fact that having one person have total control of the accounting system without other people having knowledge, kind of throws up a flag. So having them do an examination of that, I think would be good.
I would like to see 4 years at least.
Yes.
And that gets us back before Jacob was here. Just, like I say, not saying anything's wrong, but just people wonder.
Did either of them say how soon they could start?
We didn't discuss that, but I don't know how many of them are active in regular auditing for governments, but that's kind of the heavy season right now. So I think they would make their timeline adjusted to get to this relatively soon.
So will there be 2 separate audits?
Yeah, this would be separate from what
So
Clifton,
that's what I'm
Clifton
saying.
Larson Allen was
Right.
already engaged and
In-
started on our regular annual audit for fiscal year 19.
That's what I wondered, I thought.
So they're Clifton Larson, Alice,
We've, in
annual audit will be from July 1, 2018, covering through June 30th, 2019, correct?
correct, and as on the sheet I just handed out,
Based on,
we have $1,100 in
what you-
expenses already.
so that 1 year audit is gonna cost us $1,100, 1,100 or 11,000, 1,100.
I don't know the exact dollar amount. Again, past years, fiscal year 16 cost us $20,550. Fiscal year 17 cost us $20,550, and fiscal year 18 was $29,900.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure I was seeing it the way you
What
were
we've paid,
presenting this.
what we've paid so far for fiscal year 19 is 1,100, but that's just in progress billing. So I would anticipate it to be closer to that fiscal year 19 figure.
then a 4-year audit, as Rich is suggesting. What do we believe that's actually gonna cost us if a 1-year audit ranges from $20,000 to $30,000?
Well, according to Bergen, 4 years is 13,500 is their proposal right now. Because they're gonna do the forensics. So they can use their computer system to go through and analyze. So, I mean, that's their proposal. Not sure that I saw a dollar amount
Don't remember one.
for the other firm.
Well,
They're basing it off of who's doing it. If it's a partner or a manager or
is it
associate.
Edie and Bailey? Is that how you
ID
pronounce it?
Bailey.
ID Bailey, yeah.
What I took from their proposal, their inclusions, they would perform limited examination at a cost of $6,000.
Plus out of pocket, yeah.
Yes, I did not see a time frame. But then Jacob sent us a Clifton Larson Allen 3-year proposal from July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2019, and said that would cost $3,500 to $7,000. So, I don't know, something just doesn't add up to me, because they're gonna do a 1-year at about, anywhere from 20 to 30,000, but they'll go back and do an extensive 3-year for 3,500 to 7,000. And Bergen KDV will do a 4-year for 13,500.
Again, they're limited scopes. They're not everything, that exists.
They must be very limited
I know
at that dollar amount.
Bergen outlined exactly their scope. This is the last page in their proposal.
I'm fearful that the notations of additional expenses could snowball on us.
Did any of them give an idea of what an additional expense would be?
No.
I'm sure probably some of their additional expenses, if they discovered something and then they had to start investigating even further, that could be an additional expense. But at the point of discovery, if they do discover something, at that point of discovery, it could very easily be turned over to the state auditor, to the police department. Who knows where it could go? That's if they discover anything. But at this point, from just communication with the public, they want to see it done.
We need to decide which one we wanna use. Which one do you wanna see used, Rod?
If we can hold them to this dollar amount that they submitted, and it will not go over. I just have this reluctant that all of a sudden, here's gonna be your bill, and we're gonna we'll have serious sticker shock. We want an outside set of eyes, and that's kind of what you're leaning to, Rich. The Bergen KDV, to me, they spelled out more detail. They gave a timeline. They had a 2-year from July of 2017 that would run through June of 2019 at 7,500. 4 years from July of 2015 to June of 2019 at 13,500. The other ones, I don't have that level of comfort that I'm understanding their scope. You know, RSM 14.8 to 24.9, then that's phase one. Anything outside of that's to be determined. I'm not about to say, well, here's an open checkbook. So I would throw that one out, throw the Bailey firm out. We're left with 2. One's our current, so we're not getting a fresh set of eyes. So that takes us to Bergen. I'd be more favorable for 2 years at $7,500.
So just a comment, I think it was Bergen that I spoke with, and if I understand correctly, the concern is with specific employees and just wanting to get a peace of mind. And if that's the case, we don't necessarily have to do 4 consecutive years. Again, as they've all expressed this, that in their experience, someone who engages in any sort of, fiscal misconduct, they've never seen people just stop. So if you look at the last 12 months or the fiscal year for either position or both positions, you can get 2 years worth of data without doing the full 4. Obviously, if you find something, you would want to make sure that you've investigated that thoroughly, but just as an option to try to spend our dollars wisely, but also investigate the issue.
I still think we gotta go back to 4 years, because if we only say we're gonna go back 1 year, we're not going back to Al Johnson's term.
Again, you could look at that fiscal year plus what other fiscal year, you can pick. You don't have to do, all of them. Now, I'm not saying we can't do all of them, I'm just trying to explain our options.
Well, but if they're doing the forensics, doing it through, and they can take our accounting system, bring it in, and they can scrape it and look at it and analyze it, they should be able to do 4 years in a reasonable amount of time.
I'll make the motion to go with Bergen KDV, 4 years.
Second.
First by Cody, second by Kay, to go with KBD for the special auditing services.
Would the 2-year capture both parties?
If you're going back 2 years right now,
Well, you're going from June of 2019, backing up 2 years from there,
so you're gonna get about,
July of 2017.
yeah, so you're gonna get about 2 months of Al, because he was off for, what, a month and a half
How,
for health reasons before he retired.
Or we could run it by him and see how it would be if we did 16 and 18.
Well, you've got a motion on the
you can
table
vote on the
already.
motion.
We did have a second, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just think 2 years would be adequate.
You gonna ask for comments?
What?
Comments? Gotten there yet?
Usually I get ready to say that, and somebody else on the council jumps out. So is there any public comment on the proposal for special auditing services? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
6.4, proposal for municipal legal services.
As requested, I contacted references for all three firms. I also reviewed their proposals and I guess thought on it for a while. With all that information in mind, I guess I think they are all good, qualified firms. I also want to make sure that the council is aware our current city attorney is still interested and would like to continue serving if that's the wish of the council. So although there wasn't a proposal submitted, I still interested. But of the three proposals the council was interested from the last meeting, if I had to recommend one of the three, I'd be recommending Lynch Dallas, just based on the proposals, the phone conversations I had, and my personal experience with the firm. So.
Well, I'll make the motion to approve Lynch Dallas then as the city law firm.
Second.
First by Rich, second by Betty to have them, have Jacob Lynch Dallas as the new city legal firm.
We need. Do you want to do some public comment or?
Are you guys done beating this up?
Deborah Henson,
What?
Jimmy Henson's wife, I don't think you can vote for that, to be honest with you, because it revolves around what's going on.
On who the city's gonna hire to be the future city attorney?
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with
Yeah, it does.
anything.
Yes, it does. Jacob
Well-
does it not have something to do with the thing going on right now?
I'm not going to comment on that, but there's no provision or
Are you kidding me?
there's no law that would keep her from engaging in this conversation or vote.
Okay.
None.
Oh my god.
Any more public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7.0 new business. 7.1 resolution to approve urban renewal plan amendment for Anamosa corridor urban renewal area.
This is just amending our urban renewal plan to include this current project for the Chamber Drive Business Park. We would still, you'll see our next agenda item is, again, to set the date for the development agreements, so just a step in the process, I guess, but is there any questions on the project, or?
So moved.
First by Cody,
Second.
second by Betty. Any further discussion? Any public comment? And it's a roll vote.
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Mockart,
Yes.
Rod Smith,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
7.2, resolution setting a date of meeting at which it is proposed to approve a development agreement with Eagle View Land Development, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
And again, that date would be our next meeting, September.
Is it 23rd?
I'll make the motion to set the public hearing for September 23rd, 6 p.m. Council chambers.
Second.
First by Cody, to set it for our next meeting, second by Rich. Any council discussion? Any public comments? And it's a roll vote.
Crump,
Yes.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Mockart,
Yes.
Rod Smith,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
7.3, resolution approving the hiring and setting salary of deputy city clerk.
Move to approve.
Second.
I was distracted from that.
Weimer, and Mockart.
Alright. Any council discussion?
So did I see this was a candidate that came out of a narrowed down pool of 4?
We interviewed 6 candidates initially and then narrowed it down to 3.
And our city administrator, current city clerk, and was there anybody else involved with
No,
the?
that was-
Just the two of you.
When would you start?
She said she was gonna submit her 2 weeks notice either today or tomorrow, so.
Any public comment?
I'm counting the days back.
It too is a roll vote.
K. Smith,
Yes.
Mockart,
Yes.
Rod Smith,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Weimer,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
7.4, beer and liquor license, renewal of Class B wine permit, Class C beer permit with Sunday sale privileges, Dollar General, store number 3685.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Rich, second by John. Any further council discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7.5, renewal, review and approval of insurance bills.
Move to approve.
First by Betty,
Second.
second by Kay.
Page 1 of the submitted bills, item number 63947. Just an explanation of the $1,520 water plant expansion delays. And I'm just reading, obviously, what is here. What delays were we responsible for?
I guess I would argue that we weren't responsible for any delays, but that bill is from our engineer, and they had work overseeing the project regardless of if it was our fault or not, and they're billing us for that. I think they expect us to recoup those costs in our relationship with the contractor. That's still something we're working on.
Well, I know we already have a motion and a second on the floor, but I would like to see that excluded until HR Green can provide us with the details of $1,520 on the delays that I don't believe we are responsible for. They could be present at the next meeting, or they could submit in writing, again, the details of those delays.
Do we have a contract with them stating that we're responsible for paying them?
I'm sure we have an agreement for the project. I don't know the details of that, off the top of my head. I guess my perspective is that, and I have no problem looking for the details, but again, it's not their fault that the project was delayed.
And it wasn't ours either.
Nope.
Who was the manager of the project?
The contractor was Kalachi.
Who was managing them? HR Green?
I wouldn't say managing, but they were overseeing the project for the city.
Okay, I'm not gonna get hooked up on the vocabulary. Managing, overseeing. We obviously had a very good working relation with them through that project. But they can provide details for that.
Okay. Well,
Second
well,
page,
we had a motion and a
Yeah, you
second,
got
so
first, so they'd have
I
to be
guess
the
sec-
ones.
second page,
So I will,
wait till the public comment.
I will.
second page, 63954, Kleesner Construction. 48,774, street and alley repairs. I'm just questioning what all took place, and in the future, if it would be possible that we could conduct some of those repairs in-house.
I think these are the annual street projects. I don't think these are, although we have had emergency projects, these are not, I 90% sure this invoice is, the scheduled street projects, that,
Here's the,
yes.
Here's how the HR Green followed up with it. You can look at the details.
Okay, $3,200 was related to, a street repair, for an emergency sewer project on Nassanis. The rest of the bill, the $48,774.42 is scheduled planned street repair, street projects or alley projects.
So this
And-
is something that's in the budget every year.
It is budgeted, yes.
Boy, we don't wanna have that conversation again.
It's ironic.
here's the.
Just
If
that,
anybody wanted to see those.
all I'm asking is, they did the work, we own, but if we can look at cutting corners by doing some of that in-house, I think the taxpayers would be very appreciative.
I'd like to see that skid loader be used. I'd be on board with that, Ron.
But I still stand on the HR Green.
Are the people who made the motion in the second feeling the same way, or?
Is the HR green paper going around over there?
Yeah,
No.
no, that one's right there, sorry, it's
Would
right
you
here, did
like
you
to
wanna
see it?
see that?
Well,
This is just the,
This is
If-
street
paving.
repair or street
if Rod sees
projects.
it, will it change his thinking, as I'm asking?
I'm on the fence with that because when you hire a contractor, you're the one responsible for paying them. And whether or not it's your fault that it goes smooth or not, I do kind of think it's up to you to be collecting the money from who you need to collect the money from, not withhold it from the person you agreed to pay. So, I might have to disagree with you on this one, Rod, but I'm on the fence because I see it both ways.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree
If
then.
they, I mean, if they're the reason, they oversaw the project and they knew the entire time there was gonna be a delay and this was coming up, don't pass that either way.
Well, and their agreement was with the city, it was not
That's
with,
what I'm saying.
it was not with Kalachi. So they're if anything, then it's our responsibility to recoup the cost from Kalachi.
They were to manage the project. At this point, I could say the shortcoming was it could be in the managing of the project.
Well,
I don't think delaying 2 weeks to get a detailed explanation is asking too much. But we have a motion on the floor and a second. And in Robert's Rules of Order, we either have to have it amended or vote on it as it is.
So are you thinking they were the holdup? Or,
I don't.
I guess nobody knows what the holdup was. They just,
well, the holdup for the whole project was Kalachi.
Kalachi's, yeah.
I mean, that,
And
they,
they've known that for months.
yeah, it's really no different than when we were redoing Elm Street and that got held up. That wasn't exactly the engineer's fault, it was due to the company having off working someplace else, so in this scenario, they could go to Kalachi all they wanted to try to force them to work, and if they weren't showing up and weren't paying people and they weren't showing up, it wasn't anything HR Green could have done.
And are we still going, I don't wanna say going after, because that's not what I'm thinking, but are we still holding Kalachi's responsible for,
We're still pursuing that.
and so it
I mean,
would
we
be
have-
up
we
to
have a-
us?
Special legal counsel, they probably have a bill, I think, in this bill run, that we are paying to, help us pursue, this issue with Kalachi.
And I'd like to say we could add the 1,500 onto that, but we all know how these things end, it'll be a settlement of some sort.
H&R Green can come here or submit a detailed explanation with structure. I'd be in favor of paying it. Again, they were to manage the project. The delays that were experienced throughout, I'm not saying they had full responsibility of it, but I also don't know what this $1,520 is in reference to.
So if you get explanation, it can be paid in 2 weeks.
Yes.
I will amend my motion that we pay the bills and put the HR Green, table that for 2 weeks.
What about you, Kay?
It's a hard one. I guess I'm not necessarily in favor of waiting the 2 weeks. I'll withdraw my second.
So we have a new motion,
And no second.
no second.
I'll second it. I'm sorry, Kay, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
So we have a first and a second to take the HR Green one out.
should do the public comment.
Well, I was gonna ask them if they wanted to argue about this anymore.
As long as they get paid in 2 weeks.
Alright, so you guys are done beating this one up? With the public comment?
Bryce, did you wanna say something, or?
I was just gonna say, when you're talking about it,
Bryce,
Oh,
could you come to
Bryce.
the podium, please? I wouldn't wanna get called out on breaking rules.
I wouldn't break any rules. No, wouldn't do it. I was just gonna say, when you're discussing it, being on the other side of the fence here a few times in past years, I assume you've got a good chunk of liquidated damages built up on Kalachi with the water plant,
Yeah,
and that's holding out there.
yeah.
And more than likely, your bills from HR Green will go up more than that in the future, just because it's just the way they run on inspection fees. So that's where your argument ends up back in, is it goes against the LDs.
Thanks.
Any more public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 8.0, city administrators report.
Scheduled the, water and wastewater operational assessment for September 19th. Was able to schedule the downtown assessment, for November 19th through the 21st. And, one of the current projects we're working on, our community catalyst project, the Thou Art Gallery that's being rehabbed, was visited by the Lieutenant Governor today. He's visiting a lot of the community catalyst sites. They're trying to put emphasis on kind of rural initiatives. So they were quite pleased with the site and excited for what it's going to be when it's finished. So I think that's all I've got unless there's questions.
Do they have a completion date they have to meet on that?
Off the top of my head, I want to say they have 2 years from the award of the funds. So I think they're expected to get at least done with the first floor this year.
They've moved right along, I mean, they've moved right along.
Do we need public comment on that?
No.
9.0, mayor and council reports on boards and commissions.
Just a quick one from tourism. Bob said that, spending in Jones County increased last year by 6% to 23.73 million for the county.
They come to see the hula hoop tree.
They better do it quick, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's saying that throughout the county.
Yeah,
They could pin it down to
they don't break it down
community-wide.
per city or it's throughout the county.
Yeah, Dale and I went to landfill meeting. Their property and liability insurance come in that bill, $9,500. And I don't know, some reason they had a workman's comp claim, so now they're gonna pay it separate from the county. Sounds like it might be a little cheaper doing it that way, and that's $6,500. And by raising the recyclable fees a couple months ago, they've cut about a third off what they're getting out there. cause they was bringing it from Lynn County here, cause it was cheaper, no way to prove where it was going, so now they're going back to Lynn County. So that saves some money. And the 911, Dubuque County's gonna start putting in some, out at Lasso E there at Amber, to get better communications. They're paying for it and gonna do that to get better onto Cedar Rapids and statewide. And then emergency management, the mitigation report, which I'm sure Jacob hasn't had time to look. I left it off Friday, I think, with Linda, and I know that. But if there's no change, Brenda said, well, I just email her. If you got a question, call her up there at the courthouse. You probably got her email address, but I've got it. So if no change, just email her after you get a chance to look at it and tell her you're good with what's there. Okay, that's it.
Hometown Pride met today, and they're having an A-Town get down this Thursday night, in back the city parking lot where the sculpture was. They have food producers coming and cooking, and they're gonna have yoga and artists and music and, just kind of a end of summer, fall get together. And then they're planning, Thou Art is going to, when they open, they're gonna have a Valentine's dinner to do a fundraiser to get the Grantwood statue back here to town permanently. There's people working with the company and negotiating a purchase price so that that can come home to Anamosa permanently, which would be a good thing. And so they're also, doing a ribbon cutting on the trail on October 4th, so, for the first phase of the trail, so, a lot of good stuff going on.
Anybody else? 10.0 public with business with the council, one item's not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mike Dearborn, 405 North Division. I apologize for not sticking around for the agenda item last week concerning the purchase of the building for the police department. So I do have just a couple quick questions or concerns, actually. I understand a lot of your reason for doing those negotiations in closed session. But I just want to throw it out there, this would have been a good example of where we could have used a citizen advisory board. We could have involved citizenry at some point in this. You might have got somebody that had a little bit of expertise in purchasing downtown buildings. My second concern is, I see that you're looking to get a bond issue out there for the remainder of the price tag to get this to be a police station, in addition to a fire station. You got a plan B if this fails? Because are we gonna be sitting there with the building with no money to do anything with? Have you, in your closed session, did you discuss that? Now that it's out, you can discuss that. I mean, cause you do realize there's that chance you're not gonna get that bond. Jacob?
The purchase agreement is contingent on financing of the project.
It is?
Yes.
So that's gonna come up for a vote, when are you shooting for it? I mean, the purchase is gonna sit there for this amount of time? On contingency? Until this vote is
Until the
complete?
financing is approved, yes.
That financing includes the bonding, correct?
Correct.
It's pretty patient on the seller's part. Thank you, that's all I have.
Nancy Schaefer, 803 North Division Court. I know the past city clerk used an old cassette recorder during the meetings. Is that being used yet?
No.
Okay.
The video has audio.
I know, I just thought maybe that could have been fallen back on if you were using that, so that that could have been put on the website, so we could have heard the entire meeting last time, but since it wasn't used, we can't do that. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Eleven adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
First by Rick, second by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
What I was asking, the guy that has the big boy carving